Voices amongst the static. A glitch in the simulation. A broadcast with no origin. You have found the Phenomenauts podcast. Hello, you sentient cluster of space dust. You have tuned into the Phenomenauts, a bi-monthly podcast where we look at the weird, wonderful, mysterious happenstances of this and occasionally other universes. Your hosts on this wild ride are myself, D. Barnes, the amazing Amber Hall.
Oh, hello there.
And the effervescent Oscar Boardman.
Ahoy hoy.
Don't forget, we're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and Transistor, so please give us a like, follow, share, comment, download. Whatever's easiest, we just love hearing from you fine folks. Admin out the way, how's everybody doing?
Well, you know what? I'm feeling pretty rough, but as I understand it, so do you, D.
Oh, I'm dying. Please be patient with me.
I'm making like a special effort to speak normally, but if I were to speak, I'm talking a little bit like this.
The problem is, whatever plague has me, it's in my throat, so it's like I can't even pretend that there's nothing going on. It's like, oh no, this is just not optional. I'm just gonna be a croaky mess for a while.
Ugh.
How's Oscar doing?
I'm in the prime of my health. You know, I got up this morning, ran 10 miles. Really, just I could do anything right now.
Did you happen to forget that I live with you and know you didn't run for 10 miles this morning?
I did it for that 5 minutes you went into your room to do something. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's fast.
Yeah, I know. That's how healthy I am.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. No funny business. I'm just going to spin the wheel.
Yeah, let's do it.
Woo.
Amber, you're up.
Oh, bye.
Tell us about some cool things.
Well, I had a lot of fun learning about this one. It was like a documentary clip I think I'd seen on YouTube, and then I found the full documentary. Had a watch. It's really interesting. I will. The link for it will be in the sources. So our story today begins with a boy. George was always so interested in rocks. His parents were sure he'd become a geologist or a rock legend. Thankfully for the nature of this story, it was the former. Anyway, our protagonist, George Plafka, was ingenious when it came to all things igneous, and went on to study at Brooklyn College. Now that wasn't the height of the highest level of academia George achieved. No, he kept that momentum going, rolling through the University of California and Berkeley-Stanford University, gathering qualifications along the way, much like a rolling stone gathers moss. Okay, that's the last rock pun, I promise. George literally has geo in it as well. Anyway, George Plafka has made significant contributions to the fields of geology and seismology over the years, making his parents proud, I'm sure. He even won awards for his groundbreaking work. But that's enough about our hero. Where am I going with this? Well, his academic adventures took him to numerous neighborhoods, but none were so nipple-numbingly nippy than Arctic Alaska. I know most people, when they hear Alaska, think of snow-covered tundra or something similar, but the location our beloved George visited, and the focus of my research this week, is far from a barren tundra. Lituya Bay is quite the spectacle. Dense forest with magnificent mountains rising up behind. Glaciers meander their way down from the peaks, all the way to sea level. The combination of conditions is what allows there to be a bay at all, which is actually unusual along the coast. Think of the chilly but beautiful environments of Canada. There's stuff like that. These beautiful mountains and forests and things. Anyway, in 1953, Plafka and his colleague Don Miller travelled to Lituya Bay while surveying for oil. They never found any petroleum, but what they did find was that something had happened in Lituya Bay on a cataclysmic scale. What these scientists found was a previously undocumented force of destruction. Unluckily for them, as fine geologists as they were, the evidence didn't lie in the rocks of the bay, but in the trees. Now, Georgie Boy and DJ Miller first knew something was amiss when they looked at the forest in the area. The mature forest growth didn't extend all the way down to the shoreline, as was true in most of the surrounding area. Instead, there were bands of younger trees below mature forest. Our scientist Geo figured that whatever had caused the disparity in the ages of the trees might have left some evidence above that boundary. So, they cut down some trees, they took some samples and sent them to a forestry research lab to get an idea of the ages of the trees and hopefully find out what happened in the area. In the lab, the tree samples from above the boundary showed some strange results. The early growth in the trees was good, nice and healthy, but then all of a sudden the growth changed. Instead of the normal healthy growth, there was a huge scar. The researchers determined that something must have hit the tree incredibly hard on the side that faced down into the bay, and this result held for all of the samples above the boundary. Clearly, a violent force had struck the entire shoreline of the bay. It appeared that the forest had been hit by a giant wave. For the scientists, this seemed impossible. No wave in history had ever reached anything nearly that high. Now, tsunamis usually roll in anywhere between 10 to 15 meters in height. You might remember the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami in Indonesia. I know that was a huge thing on the news at the time. The magnitude 9.1 underwater earthquake on that day caused waves as high as 30 meters and flooding as far as 3 kilometers inland. The wave at Lituya Bay was estimated by Plafka to have been up to 150 meters high. So, what the hell causes a 150 meter tall tsunami? So, G-Plaf and Don Mill left Lituya Bay in 1953 scratching their heads, with the true nature of the cataclysm seemingly shrouded in mystery forevermore. And that was the case for 5 more years. Then, on July 9th, 1958, at 10:15 p.m, George Plafka and Don Miller got their answers. Here's an eyewitness account from Howard Ulrich, a fisherman who was on a boat with his son in the Lituya Bay area on July 9th, 1958. Quote, "It was approximately 10:15. There was a large rumbling noise from up at the head of the bay. There was a slight pause. I thought that everything was over with, but some movement up there caught my attention at the corner of my eye, and so I looked up there directly. And what I observed was like an atomic explosion. This big splash came, a huge wave. It looked like just a big wall of water. We were looking at death, and that's exactly my first thought. I had 40 fathoms of anchor chain, that's about 75 meters, and it started running out off the boat. It came to the end of the 40 fathoms and just snapped it like a string, and then we were free, but we were still on the front of the wave. We were swept up and over the land and up above the trees, and that's where I assumed we were going to end up." End quote. So I thought that was absolutely crazy to hear, a man with his son getting absolutely swept away by this wave. Thankfully, Howard the fisherman and his son Sonny the fisher boy were unharmed. They were lifted up and then deposited back down into the bay. Unfortunately, another 2 boats in the area weren't so lucky, being carried out of the bay to the open sea where they were wrecked, and unfortunately there was no survivors. An Alaskan Coast Guard was recorded on the radio saying, quote, "God, what an awful sight. You ought to see it in there. Something like the end of the world." End quote. Now, I'd love to say G-Man was on the site to investigate right then and there, but he was actually out of the country, so it was left to Donald J. Miller, kick-ass sidekick to our King of Hearts. Check it, this guy takes a flight out above the bay to find the source of the mega tsunami. Flying around above, having a look down. What he found was a huge section of rock had fallen off a mountain and plummeted almost a kilometre into the water at the head of the bay. The impact created a wave that tore trees out of the ground up to 524 metres above sea level. So the mega tsunami that happened in the bay previously, and this one, was caused by a landslide.
Oh.
And more on that story later, but first, a message from our sponsor. This kitchen is so hard to clean. There must be an easier way. Hi, I'm Amber Hall, and I'm declaring war on dirty tiles with new Trivia Time, patent pending. The Trivia Time headliner this week is, what could this monster wave gobble up for breakfast, yum yum yum? A 71-metre long Boeing 747? Can hardly even consider that an hors d'oeuvre. At 93 metres, the Statue of Liberty is barely even a snack for the wave. How about the largest statue in the world? The Spring Temple Buddha in China at 153 metres. It'll do, as a nice appetizer. How about the Great Pyramid of Giza? Tallest man-made structure for almost 4,000 years at 230 metres. Oh, we'll call that a starter. Well, Amber, you probably scream into and around your screen. What about our beloved Eiffel Tower? It's 324 metres. Surely that is enough. Maybe that can be a main course. You know what? I've just made the Eiffel Tower into a main course. Empire State Building? Surely. 443 metres to the tip. Get wildly out of town. This wave enjoys your Empire State Building as a delicious dessert. 300 Oscars? Yeah, actually. Actually, that'll do it, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, landslide-generated tsunamis, they don't really have an upper limit for their size because it's effectively a splash from the rock landing in the water. So, Oscar, you're going to need to increase the output of your cloning program because the Chicxulub asteroid, you know, the one that diddly destroyed the dinosaurs, generated a mega tsunami 1,500 meters high.
Dear Lord.
1.5 kilometers tall, the tsunami. That's about 857 Oscars for those of you at home. So it turned out this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill seaquake tsunami. It was a landslide tsunami. The mountain face directly opposite the landslide got the water all the way up to around about here. If you can't hear where my hand is, it's about 524 metres up in the air right now. The other areas of the bay were relatively shielded by that bit of land. So further away, there were many reports of measly 30-metre waves, barely 3 times higher than a normal tsunami. Anyway, amazingly, the thunderous crash as 81 million tons of rock broke free and headed skinny dipping could be heard 80 kilometres away. That's the distance from Manchester to Nottingham, give or take. So, there you have it, the story of George Plafka. He's 91 as of the recording of this. He's still alive, and he's received 2 awards in 2017 at the age of 88 for his contributions to geology and seismology, including his contribution to the theory of plate tectonics, which wasn't fully accepted until the early 60s, around about the time Yuri Gagarin was in space, the first man ever. That always seemed to shock me that we had people in space around about the time we were going, actually, yeah, tectonic plates, that's probably what's going on. Before that, we didn't think that there was tectonic plates, and we were getting people up in the space.
Wow.
Absolutely crazy.
That really puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
But there you go, George Plafka. I now know a strangely large amount of trivia about this geologist. But there you go.
Can I make a really bad joke?
You can. I would love it if you did.
Do you know what? That is pretty rock and royal.
Oh. Dear Lord. Some of the things I have to hear on this show.
Maybe I thought about that pun, but I didn't put it in because I'm not going to sink that low.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
Beneath the wave.
This is like not even barely a joke now.
I'm just going to spin the wheel.
Okay.
Oscar, you're up.
Well, continuing with our waves or beneath the waves, I need you to you and the audience, and I just need you to close your eyes for just a second, okay?
Okay.
Are they closed? Are you ready? Imagine you're just floating on the ocean, and all that you can see is the sky, the ocean you're on, and the horizon in between. No landmass whatsoever. As you ponder how you got here, you fail to notice a shadowy shape lurking beneath the water. Then suddenly, out of the water, wham! It's me with a new segment I like to call the secrets of secrets, where I'm going to explore some of the ocean's many inhabitants, past and present. So I'm going to start with truly one of my biggest childhood heroes, one that I'm glad that I've never ever met, and that is Carcaracles Megalodon, or the Megalodon, or Meg to their friends.
Meg.
Meg.
I love it.
So, the Megalodon, which means big tooth, by the way, is an extinct shark that lived 23 to 3.6 million years ago. So, long gone now, sadly. But it existed during the early Miocene and Pliocene period of our history. Estimates of its size place it on average, the average Meg would be about 10.5 meters long. Ooh. However, the max length that they've ever found was about 18 meters long. That's just over 10 Oscars.
Wow.
Or if you've never seen me, which not many people have statistically, the just to give you an idea, the standard double-decker bus in the UK is about 11 meters long.
Oh.
So this is over 1.5 times the length of a double-decker bus.
Oh.
It's thinking about it. It chills me right to the bone, which leads to my first shark fact, because sharks don't have bones.
What?
Their skeleton is actually comprised entirely of cartilage.
Whoa.
I'm not sure why they opted for the cartilage, but it gives them a lot more maneuverability, so I guess that's one thing.
They're a bit more biodegradable as well.
Yeah. Also, because for us, red blood cells are developed inside the bone marrow. So where does the shark get all of its red blood cells?
It sniffs them up from miles away.
That's why it goes after all those, people with nosebleeds on surfboards.
Yeah.
Actually, the blood for a shark is developed in the spleen, in the Leydig's organ, which is something only these creatures tend to have, and some of the special tissue around the gonads of the shark. So, they
right.
A lot of places. They're all over the place. That's how they get their blood. So, where could you find the Megalodon back in the heyday? Well, according to a paper published in 2016 by Pimiento et al., they had a cosmopolitan distribution, which means you could pretty much find them all over the globe as long as it's in the sea. So, you could just find them everywhere.
Yeah, that would suck if you could just find them on, like, a hill.
They used the shallow warm waters for their nursing grounds, so where they'd have their kids, and all their kids would live there and mainly feed off of fish. And then when they grew up and got quite big, they left those shallow waters for the deep sea, where they would tend to focus on larger prey, such as whales. And the most common fossils we can find of them are their teeth, because they had so many, and sharks are quite well known for their ability to just replace their teeth.
Right, I have a question. So if they're just all cartilage, what's up with those teeth? They're quite sharp, they're not springy and spongy.
Yeah, so it's also made of cartilage. I don't have it written on my notes here. Damn me, pass me. But it's not made of bone, it is just produced in the same manner.
Oh.
So I believe it is cartilage, but you know what? I will not say for certain right now because I didn't write it down.
That's crazy, though. You just assume that they were bones, but that's great.
Yeah. The Megalodons, the Megalodon has the largest teeth of any known shark, and they measured around 18 centimeters long. That would be roughly the size of your hand if you held it open, from the wrist to the tip of your fingers, roughly.
Whoa.
So that's a big tooth. And if you're worried about me running out of shark-based facts, then do not despair, because just like sharks and their teeth, every time one falls out of my mouth, a shark fact, another one falls back into place, and a new one is produced every 8 to 10 days. So I'll never run out of shark facts. So, as a human, we have a bite force of around 162 pounds per square inch, or psi. That's okay. Compared to a great white shark, who have a bite force of around 4,000 psi. So that's 24 times larger than us.
Okay.
So how big could the bite force of a Megalodon be? Would you like to take an uneducated guess? Just shoot for the stars.
See, I don't know whether maybe it scales up, so like you get like 10% bigger, you're 100% better at biting. Let's say 20 times stronger.
20 times stronger than humans?
Yeah. Than a great white.
Well, it's not quite 20 times as much. So in 2008, a team of scientists led by S. Rowe conducted an experiment to determine the bite force of the Megalodon, extrapolating from the data they got from great white sharks. And they calculated the Megalodon would have a force of up to 40,000 psi, which is 10 times that of the great white shark, so 240 times the humans.
Wow.
And it is believed to be the strongest bite force of any creature that has ever existed.
Damn.
The big chomp.
The big chomp.
For a while, it was believed that while hunting, they would apply similar strategies as the great white, attacking its prey from the soft underbelly. So it would dive deep down, the great white. It dives deep down to the water and then comes up at its prey because the visibility down in the ocean is quite bad, whereas up's really good. So, yeah, I've it's always been an unnerving factor of the ocean for me, the fact that, it's really deep. But some fossils of baleen whales seem to indicate that the Megalodon had some other strategies it tried. One of which was going straight for the heart and lungs of their prey, just crunching through the rib cage. So you don't need to go for that soft part, you can just go straight for it.
Ruthless.
Whereas other ancient whale fossils seem to indicate that it would sometimes attack the flippers or bones of its prey, just to immobilize it before deciding to really chomp down.
Alright, well now we've covered every body part. I'm sure they just bite at random.
Yeah, well, they don't really need to think about it too much with, that many teeth and that strong a bite. They're truly what could have even hoped to compete with such a chomping machine. What indeed, for there is another heavyweight contender of the oceans at this moment. Representing the marine mammals Go team, measuring up to 17.5 meters long, the Leviathan, named after the biblical sea monster the Leviathan, was a species of sperm whale and a record holder of the largest teeth of any creature that have ever lived, at 36.2 centimeters long. So, those standard school rulers that are about 30 centimeters long?
Yeah.
The Leviathan's teeth were longer than that. 36.2 centimeters long.
Oh, damn.
Wow.
And it is believed to have competed for the exact same sort of food sources the Megalodon would also go after. So, whales, small fish, smaller sharks. Truly, these titans of the chomp ruled the oceans for a long time. So I guess the question is, what eventually happened to them? Around 35 million years ago, the oceans began to cool, which led to the glaciation of the poles, the closure of the Central American Seaway. So there was a way to connect the seas between North and South America, until the landmass started to form around there. But then we put one in again. And the Gulf Stream starting to stall, which means less nutrients and such being carried across the ocean. And as these large predators thrive in warm waters, they sort of lost access to all their nursery sites because of the drop in global water levels.
Right.
And they just couldn't cut it anymore. They sadly, they were so good at what they didn't decide to take any precautionary measures in case anything changed. And they just couldn't handle the all these new waters happening.
It just seems like wasted evolution points into tooth length.
Yeah, well, they were really, I think, those two are really trying to show off one another. One said, I can bite the hardest. The other one said, well, I've got the biggest teeth. Meanwhile, all the other species who are sort of slightly lower on the food chain were just getting ready for the shift in power.
So a bit like a shark dick measuring contest.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the whales, which were the targets of these two titans, after they'd sort of gone extinct, they started to get larger and larger in size because they could afford to.
Oh.
That's metagaming it, that.
Yeah. And sadly, this is the sad part, because previously it was thought that the Megalodon was an ancestor of the great white, but that is untrue. As they recently found that the Megalodon was of its own lineage of sharks, and in fact it was the final chronospecies, which means it is the end of its line. It was the last shark in his subsection of sharks, and so the line ended with Caracles Megalodon.
Rip.
Yeah. May it never come back, because I don't think I could handle if that thing was around.
Yeah. When I say rip in peace, I really mean it.
Yeah, it's a little bit terrifying, really.
But yeah, that's the first edition of the Secrets of Secrets. I won't tell you if it'll come back or not. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, unexpectedly. But I hope you enjoyed.
You know how they say the ocean floor, the ocean is less explored than space. I'm like, so there's plenty of secrets down there.
I love the Secrets of Secrets.
All right, I think
yeah,
it's just you, dealer.
It's just me. Okay, right.
I think I know what's happening right now.
Can't believe I'm doing this. So, as requested this week, I'm starting with a rap. Honestly, it's trying, but I think I've got the knack. Lyrically, I'm rhyming. I'm giving it a crack. All things said, I think we'll have to see. Honestly, I'm not sure that it's very me. To be honest, without a beat, it's a little whack. That said, rapping's pretty neat. Now, let me take us back. Let me tell you about a tomb, but without this funky beat, because this bit's got more characters than my last bloody tweet. I tried, I'm sorry. Can we just gloss over that ever happening? That was abysmal.
That was glorious.
You should have given me a little bit of notice. I could have thrown down a sick beat for you.
That was abysmal. I hope I'm never asked to do that again, because I just...
I really respect that you did, though.
This is what I mean, folks. If you have a request, we will honour it, no matter how much of a twat I look. I'll do it.
Record your next episode from a moving vehicle.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, there is an upper limit. But anyway, back on task.
Okay.
This week, I am, of course, continuing the Seven Wonders saga, and let me tell you about the Mausoleum at Hellicarnasus. Which, I'll be honest, is another one I knew very little about, and I'm actually quite excited to chat about it.
Hey, that didn't rhyme.
Yeah, I'm not doing the whole thing in rap. But before I get, into the nitty-gritty, trivia time!
Yay!
So, the Mausoleum being one of the great wonders was actually the reason that all magnificent tombs after it were called, mausoleums. Or mausolea, to be more specific. Sorry, to use the correct grammar is what I mean there. So the Mausoleum, which is just what I'm going to call it throughout because I need to save some precious oxygen, named the seventh wonder, not for its size, but for its beauty, which I thought was pretty interesting. It was built somewhere between 353 and 350 BC. Well, no, it was built between 353 and 350 BC, in, unsurprisingly, Hellicarnasus, which today is known as Bodrum in Turkey.
Ah.
Now, thanks to our boy Pliny the Elder, I've mentioned him a few times, the Roman polymath.
Pliny!
We actually have some measurements. But, and it's a big but, we do know that Pliny's knowledge came from the written work of an architect, and essentially it's pretty, the consensus is that Pliny didn't really understand, like, what he was writing, like, picturing it, he probably couldn't have pictured it properly, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Which, obviously creates quite a few problems in trying to, like, recreate it or get a sense of what it looked like. Thankfully, our boys, plural, boys, Pausanias, Strabo, both of which you might recognise.
Yeah, these are the boys.
Yeah, and Vitruvius, who, not sure I've mentioned before, so just a little bit about him. He's a Roman author, architect, and also a civil and military engineer. They all wrote about the mausoleum. So with all that info, it's been a bit easier to piece together a bit more accurate information, I guess. So, yeah, thankfully a lot of people wrote about this thing. Now, let me start us off with a nice, rich mental picture. So if you can, please close them eyes.
Well, they're still closed from when Oscar asked.
Ah.
I'll just keep them closed.
So, on a hill overlooking an ancient city, picture a courtyard guarded by 2 stone warriors. Within, a stone platform with a staircase leading upwards, on which either side sat lions marking the approach. The outer walls of the platform bore great statues of gods and goddesses, and at each corner mounted warriors stood vigil. At the centre of the platform stood a square tapering block, 1/3 of the mausoleum's height, covered in reliefs depicting great tales such as the Amazonomachy and centaurs. The top section was lined by 36 columns, and standing between each pair a statue. Behind the columns stood a solid block to support the roof of the structure, and atop a 24-step pyramid, bordered by grand ornate statues. Central to the pyramid, a plinth housing a 4-horse chariot, bearing images of Mausolus and Artemisia in tow, rendered in beautiful marble. Feel free to open those eyes now.
Thank you.
And it's probably worth mentioning, Mausolus and Artemisia I'll mention in a bit. So, as always, take the mental picture with a pinch of salt, as it's always, built out of descriptions I've pieced together and multiple historical accounts and, more modern renderings. So it's embellished. It's probably the best way I could say it.
Okay.
I've novelized it a little bit whenever I do these. But yeah, you get a good idea of what it was going for. Pretty swanky tomb, right?
I know, yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I've put in my notes, it's almost like a much more modern version of a pyramid, and by modern I mean not modern in any way, shape or form, but more recent. It's like if, obviously the pyramids, had more of a purpose to them, I guess, but, I thought it was pretty ornate.
Yeah.
Height-wise, it was roughly 45 metres, or 148 feet, or if we're being really scientific, 25.7 Oscars. So you've heard about the what? What about the why? Well, let me tell you about Mausolus. Mausolus was a ruler of Caria, which was a region of Anatolia, which is part of modern Turkey. He ruled from 377 to 353 BC, and likely planned the wonder sort of during his time. It wasn't uncommon to build, a great monument or tomb, especially if you're in a position of power and, have the resources to do so. So basically he was like, oh, I'm gonna build a big tomb. And it was erected and named after him by order of his widow and sister, Artemisia, both of whom's urns were actually interred inside the still unfinished mausoleum. When they were interred, there were lots of dead animals placed on the stairs, and they were then filled with stones and rubbles to seal the access.
So I guess it was a bit like a pyramid.
Yeah, according to Pliny, the craftsmen finished the work after their patron's death, and I quote, considering that it was at once a memorial of his own fame and the sculptor's art. So it was, quite highly regarded in a lot of ways. So, curiosity question, well, what are you folks thinking?
Well, it's sounding, pretty wonderful. I understand why it's on the list.
Yeah, it's like this one's on there because it's pretty. That's the thing with this one.
Yeah.
It's Yeah, you know what? I wish, like all the others, I could have seen it in its heyday, and I'm curious as to whatever could have happened to it. But I'm sure you'll get to that point at some future moment.
No, that's a big large mood there. Because for my next bit, what happened? Where did it go? Well, I'll be honest, we're really not sure especially on the when and the how. So apologies, because I'm really not going to pronounce this right. Eustathius, a Greek scholar and Archbishop of Thessalonia, was knocking around between 1115 and 1195, and he wrote a commentary of the Iliad and said, "It was and is a wonder." Now, this led a man called James Ferguson, who was a Scottish architectural historian in the 1800s, to believe that it was an earthquake that had destroyed it roughly around that time. This said, in 1402, when the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, also known as Crusaders, also known as war criminals who used religion to justify terrible atrocities, they recorded the wonder in ruins. This said, Luttrell, a well-published historical writer, notes that locals at the time had no names, myths, or legends mentioning the ruins, which actually suggests that it could have happened a lot earlier. Because you would think something so big and so decadent, falling to pieces would maybe last in people's memory.
Yeah.
So, the ruins, they were used by the knights to fortify their nearby castle. They also found some reliefs which they used to decorate their castle, and much of the marble used in the mausoleum's construction was burned into lime. So a lot of what made it effectively got recycled. All that remained come the 19th century were the foundations and some broken sculptures. Indicated by a Professor Donaldson and definitively discovered by a Charles Newton, who was an archaeologist, the British government sent an expedition which lasted 3 years and ended in them sending the remaining marbles to England, which, I don't know, just reeks and reeks of cultural theft.
Nice.
Yeah. Apparently grave robbers also broke into the tomb and destroyed the burial chamber.
Well, I mean, if everyone's doing it.
The silver lining is that as of 1973, there's enough left to sort of determine the layout of what the chamber would have looked like.
Right.
So that's something. But by something, I mean barely anything. But at least we have an idea of, the layout and things like that. Work does actually still continue today. There's still excavations looking into sort of the mausoleum's art and things like that. So it's, they're still looking into it. But it's pretty well documented. I remember, this isn't in my notes, I'm just sort of paraphrasing one source here, saying that it was very, it wasn't just a monument, and it wasn't just a mausoleum. It was in a lot of ways a way sculptors represented their work. Which accounted to it being called, I think in more than one place, almost a little eclectic, just because it had so many statues and reliefs on it.
Okay.
But yeah, essentially that's the whistle-stop tour of the Mausoleum at Hellicarnasus. What do people think?
I mean, it's one of the ones I knew less about. I just knew the name.
Same, to be honest.
To be honest, before you started describing it, if you said, what does it look like, I'd go, oh, geez, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it.
Big mood.
Yeah, it's quite nice. It's this raised up kind of magnificent building, loads of statues. You got like golden chariots and lions and things. It's really cool.
Yeah, and you don't have to, climb a really big hill to go see it or wade through the deserts. It's it's there. Quite. Well, it's not.
It's ripe for the taking.
I wish it was still there, but obviously it's not.
I think maybe if they put it on top of a mountain, it wouldn't have been so ripe for the taking that people decided to nick all the rocks.
Top of a hill. Yeah, it's one of those. I think again, this is just conjecture and me just going off stuff I've read and stuff. So don't take this as honesty. I do think an earthquake is very likely as to what happened. Having looked at it and thought about how tall it was and the way it was made, it does seem very likely an earthquake could just quite easily knock it over effectively.
Yeah.
I guess that's better than being ransacked by people who follow a different religion or...
I mean, that still happened. Let's not deny that definitely still happened. Like, people came and just took bits. Yeah.
The majority was an act of God, which, you know what, that's a pretty good way to go out.
Yeah, it is.
I hope I get destroyed by an earthquake.
I hope I get destroyed.
I don't want to fade out, I just want to be walking down the street. Earthquake happens, I just shatter to pieces.
Yeah. Or somebody, comes in and sets you on fire, like the... Which one got set on fire, D?
Zeus, I think.
Temple of Artemis.
Temple of Artemis, that was it.
Yeah.
I think it was Temple of Artemis.
Was it Zeus where they went, I think maybe he got pillaged and set on fire, or maybe he was just set on fire.
That was Zeus, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. So I guess with that, I'll shift us along to our next segment, where we talk about stuff that we like. So we just have a brief talk about some of the things we've enjoyed between recording. I don't mind going first if you two need a moment.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. This week, I thought I would mention XCOM 2, which is a turn-based tactics game set in a world several years post-alien invasion, and you serve as the director of a resistance. I played the game a couple of years ago on PC, actually. Loved the visual style. I even ended up getting the art book a while ago. Just never got round to finishing it, sadly. Lo and behold, it got a Switch release recently, and on sale no less. So I did pick it up as a treat, and honestly, it looks great, feels great, plays great. Other than the odd dip in frame rate or maybe a long loading screen, it's actually really nice. I'm enjoying it more than I did on PC.
Yeah.
It just feels really good being able to pick up and play something, and something that's so passive and turn based. I know I'll have just be doing a few turns while I'm watching TV or whatever. And it did get me thinking, because I've heard a few people say, "Oh, why would you pay almost launch price for a game you already own on the Switch, especially when it's dated?" And to be fair, I think it's a really good point, because I do wish that they'd be cheaper. But the reality of it is, having this game at my fingertips feels like a completely new experience, and I know otherwise I just would not have gone back and played it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's been nice, because the other side of it is, I will say, the practicality of a Switch is very amazing. Just, there's no sitting there and booting things up. I just press a button and the screen's in my lap. You know what I mean? It's very convenient. Very, very much enjoyed. So yeah, XCOM 2, 10 out of 10, especially on Switch.
We were having that a conversation the other day where it's if you release games for the previous generation on the Switch, it's just a good idea. People like the you can just play it anywhere. It's just fantastic format.
Well, it's one of them. I definitely hear the complaints that some people have of they are often releasing a game that is, say, Skyrim's a good example. How old's Skyrim? I know both of you will know.
About 9 years.
9 years.
About 9 years, and that came out on the Switch and retailed at about 40 to 50 quid, and
that's crazy.
The game is not really worth that much anymore.
No.
But that's only looking at it in terms of its material wealth. If it's what gets someone playing a game they've not played before in a long time, or... not to put words in your mouth, Oscar, but I'm pretty sure I heard you say it's just really nice having it handheld.
Yeah, I think sometimes the problem with older games is that you look really forward to replaying them, and then you have to sit down in front of your console or your TV and play them. And after a while, you just might lose that drive to truly finish a playthrough or play through the whole game or do things. But the fact that when I played through Skyrim recently, and I'm still going on the Switch, is the fact that I can play it on the couch, and then I can go play it in bed, and I can play it on the bus. You do sacrifice the ability to mod, which I know some people that's a breaking point. But
that, yeah.
But I think with certain games, for me Skyrim, but for other people it'll be other games, it's just the ability to just play it wherever.
I was expecting you to say, I can play it, in bed, on the bus, under the bed, inside the walls, on the surface of the sun.
Sorry, that's my line.
Yeah.
Alright,
so enough of me banging on about XCOM 2. Who's next?
I have one. It's also a game. I've been enjoying. I was hesitant to buy it first, mainly because I don't have any income at the moment. But you know what? I appreciate. Right, you said £40 for a 9-year-old game is BS. What I managed to have was I managed to buy Fall Guys for £15, And it's just a lot of fun. It's easy to jump in, just have a quick game. There's been plenty of times where I'll have like maybe 1 or 2 games, it's like 20 minutes, and then that's it. Just turn it off and carry on with my day. And you play a little jelly bean man, and you just run around. You do a couple of Takeshi's Castle style, things. Which one's the real fake door? Which one's the fake real door? The real door, fake door. And you're just like, there's 60 people in the first round. 60 people all doing the same activity. Yeah. You're jumping over, wipe out, obstacles and stuff. You're trying to hang on for dear life, all this. You're trying to grab each other and throw each other off the stages. It's just a lot of fun, very hectic, very busy. I haven't won a game yet. It's surprisingly difficult because when you get to the end, people get very, very competitive, and people are quite good at these jelly bean battles. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You can dress up your jelly bean. Mine looks like a pigeon.
I've seen some gameplay, and honestly, it does look like a lot of fun. It's another one of those where I'm sincerely hoping they port it to the Switch, because I will play a lot of that. If it comes
I'd be shocked if they didn't eventually. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's nice and cheap, and there's a lot of people playing at the moment, so you can always find a game real quick.
I remember reading that they weren't expecting for it to do so well, so actually had some server issues when it launched.
Yeah.
Which is always good to hear in a way.
Yeah. I remember seeing the trailer for it initially, and I thought, oh, this is going to be an absolute banger. And it was over a year ago that they did the trailer, and I just kind of kept my eye on it, out the corner of my eye, and it's finally come out, and I'm so glad it's doing well.
Oh, is it me now?
It is.
It is.
Oh. You know what? I'm gonna give a shout out to what is possibly my, inspiration for the love of ancient and unliving fossils and whatnot. It's the TV show Walking with Dinosaurs.
Yeah.
When I was a weein, a young childling,
a small bab,
we had Walking with Dinosaurs on VHS, if you can remember.
Whoa!
Ooh.
Yeah.
VHS tapes. Ooh.
It was spicy. I'm not sure you had, because the first season only had 6 episodes, but they were all sort of 40 plus minutes, and they really got into the depths. And going back in the modern times, I have to look up at certain episodes, because there are a lot of inaccuracies now that they've advanced the sciences of paleontology and all this. So there are 1 or 2 episodes which they're not quite correct. I think they overestimated the size of the Lituya in their episode. But it still remains one of my favourite episodes, that one.
It's fantastic.
Just really took young me on a journey through this ancient world of all these giant creatures that you look out the window now and you can see maybe a pigeon, a squirrel, maybe somebody walking their dog. Well, back then, not only would you see something much larger, but there wouldn't be windows. So you'd just be standing there, and there would be this giant creature, whether it be reptile or mammal or fish. Truly drove my imagination to love all these ancient creatures that we can no longer see.
I really liked that they used a combination of CG and puppets for some of the close-ups. I thought that really kind of really sold it in a lot of scenes.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the reasons I love the Megalodon, the shark, so much, what I covered today, is because there is a shark in one of the earlier episodes. So in the sea episode of the first series, there are sharks. However, doing research for this topic, turns out they weren't megalodons. They were actually just smaller sharks called Hybodus, which were not that big in comparison. So I sort of took my perspective from a kid thinking, wow, these are pretty big sharks. And then I did the research and went, actually, these are really small sharks, and the really big sharks aren't here yet. They need a couple of million years. But yeah, if you know what, if you want to go watch this show, it is on Netflix currently. But I'm sure if you wanted, you could pop to maybe a charity shop. It might be there in the back of all those VHSs, if they still sell them.
Then, of course, you'd have to have a poke around for a VHS player as well.
Oh, yeah. And a TV that could connect to the VHS player.
Yeah, no HDMI.
So there's a lot of steps. I mean, you could just watch it on Netflix, but if you want to do it the hard way, go for it.
Just you mentioning that as well, it reminded me, I saw a documentary recently. It was a mockumentary. It's called The Future is Wild. And it explored what would have happened, I think it was if humanity gets wiped out, and then like 10 million years into the future, who's filled the meta, who's in charge. And it's like you have little underground burrowing birds, and you have giant death bats, and just like all this craziness. Like instead of like a polar bear, they're all extinct now. It's like a giant weasel thing, and the sheep that walk around in this like frozen tundra are basically giant capybaras with really fluffy coats. And it's just it's this speculative, like, what would happen if humanity disappeared and then millions of years elapsed? How would things evolve? And I just thought that was really cool. I think all the episodes are just up on YouTube as well, so I think that's fantastic.
Nice.
Oh, I'll probably give that a look-see.
A wee little cheeky look.
Ooh.
Alrighty then. I think that might be us for this session. We will be back in 2 weeks' time, and if you want to hear more of our lovely voices, you can find our other podcast, The Trialogue, where the three of us talk about, well, everything from big questions like, do you believe in soulmates, all the way to, what's your D&D class? You can find that in all the same places you'd find this, apart from YouTube. Also, any topic suggestions for feedback, or, generally anything, drop us a comment or email us on phenomenautspodcast@gmail.com. We can even give you a shout out if you'd like, or, I'll do stupid bits if you really want me to. Peace out, folks, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Bye!
Bye!
Bye!